Okay, so the next is after the journal editors, the next is, the selection of the journals. So it is again, important, as I said, in the beginning also, that you need to select the appropriate journal according to your research. So, so you should always target, for the Q rank journals. The Q rank journals are really, means that the journals which have been given a rank, like, the Q1, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, rank for Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So like I have given you some examples here, which are, very high ranked journals, in different fields like Nature, chemical reviews. And since I am from the physical education background, so this is, on the health and fitness, right? So what should be considered, to select a journal? The first thing is that journal appropriate, for your message, right? That's very important, right? And then what are the aims and scope of that journal? So you have to read the aims and scope of the journal before you start, your manuscript, sending to a journal. Then look at the publication frequency, how frequently that journal is published, whether it is published just once in a year, it is published just half-yearly publication or a quarterly publication. Because if the publication frequency is less, then there are very less chances that, your chances for getting acceptance also reduced, right? Because they have less number of slots. So that, is it online, completely online, it is physical, in a physical form. So there are so many factors which you have to consider before you send your journal, before you choose a journal. Who are the subscribers, whether that journal has been subscribed, like by institutions, like is it subscribed by the leading universities or the agencies, or the research, groups and all. So who are the subscribers for that journal? That also can, should be keep in mind when you are selecting a journal. Then impact factor, that I said before, impact factor also an important. If the impact factor is very high, then there are equally good chances that your paper also will be cited number of times. Like I have, if I look at my citation record, I have 2 papers which have I10, means they are published more than 10 times, and those are the 2 papers which are published in a Q rank journals. Some of my papers which are Web of Science but are not in the Q rank because the impact factor is less, their citations are also less. So if you publish in a high Q rank journal which has a high impact factor, then you have also equally good chances of having a good number of citations. And citations are important because like, for example, if you want to apply for a position for a professor somewhere in university, anywhere, in India or abroad. So other than your number of papers, the quality of papers, the employer, they also see how many citations you have. So that's also very important. Then the cost of the journal, what's the publication charges? That also many times some of these high Q rank journals, their publication charges are very high, and if your research is not funded and it is not supported, then it may become very difficult to publish, and if there are not a number of authors in your paper. So the cost is important. The target audience is another important, who are going to read this journal. And the publication types, as I said, types means it is online or offline publication, also important. So these are the factors which you should keep in mind before you choose a particular journal. And the last, in the preparation for publication is, the publication ethics. That's very important. So do not, it's very important, please do not make multiple submissions. So if you have sent your manuscript to one journal, so you have to wait, till that manuscript is accepted or rejected. So you cannot send your manuscript to 2 journals at the same time, thinking that if any way it accepted, you will accept and then you withdraw. So you cannot, that's unethical. And if it can be easily checked, not only by the journals, and also by your employers, they can check that you have sent your publication to multiple journals. So this is accounts to be, a gross like misconduct at many places, and this can cost you, very dearly in future. So please do not make multiple submissions. Similarly, plagiarism, as you all know, it's, and this is also very important, aspect. So do not, copy, the content from the other manuscripts, other papers as it is, and just paste, so plagiarism should be avoided. And of course, nowadays it is none of the journals, they accept your manuscripts if you are the similarity report. So when you write, of course, there are certain words which are very common in all manuscripts, and you will have some similarity always, even if you write by yourself. There are certain words, which are normally, similar in almost all the manuscripts. So your similarity report should not go more than normally 10%. It should accept the references and the bibliography. It should stay below 10%. Data fabrication and falsification is another unethical way. So don't change your data just because you want to prove that you found the effect of your intervention on so and so. So don't try to prove your results just by fabricating or giving a falsified information for your data. That improper use of subjects and animals is also not accepted, and this goes, like is an unethical way of doing research. And improper author contribution. Don't just allow, any author, any person, who has not contributed, significantly, in your research to be part of the author. Because many times, as a reviewer, again, as I said, we knew that, suppose if you have given 3 or 4, there are 3 or 4 authors in your manuscript, and many times randomly the editors, they can just ask any of the author to explain certain things, in your manuscript. And if the author, if that author has not contributed in your manuscript and he failed to answer, certain things about your manuscript, then it is clear that he is not, he should not be as an author there. And this again count as, unethical, practices in manuscript. So we should keep away from these, unethical practices. Now, the part 3 is the most important, that is writing the manuscript. So this is the, where, you start now, you're writing your manuscripts, and what you're writing now will decide, whether your paper is going to be accepted, in a journal or not. So the manuscript writing is, very, very important. So it is like, when you write a manuscript, it means it's just like you're telling a story. So it has to be, very smooth. It has to be fluent, coherent. All paragraphs, should be linked to each other. It should be, very clear and concisely written so that the readers can understand what you are trying to convey, right? To the scientific community. So there are different parts, what you can see on your screen. Generally, the manuscripts are written, in that way. The words, sometimes methods, you can write as a methods and methodology, but otherwise, normally it is in the same way. There's a title, there's an abstract, then there are keywords, and there are introduction. You introduce, and you write, you give a background and justification. It's just here, you have to understand an introduction does not mean that you are introducing your research. It is in this is a most very important part. Again, as all parts are important, but here you build a justification for your research, that why are you doing this research. You build justification, you tell significance and what has been done in past about this topic, and then you are identifying the gap in existing knowledge in this section. Then the methods, of course, is very important. Methods, again, there are further subheadings which we'll discuss later on. Then there are results, discussion, references, and if there's any acknowledgements to probably if somebody has funded your project and helped you in the project, so you can acknowledge that towards the end of your manuscript. So the first thing is the introduction. Okay, even before we start with the introduction, I would just like to tell you here one more thing. Like, what should be the order to write? Like, if I ask you a question, for example, that, okay, how will you write your manuscript? Now you have done your research and you are writing a manuscript. So how will you write it? Will you first write the introduction? You just start with the introduction, then methods, results, and discussion and conclusions, like that? It is not like that. So first of all, you have to write, your methods and the results. And when you write your methods and results, you should write your methods and results while you're doing your research. It is not like that you have completed your experiment, you have finished your research, and then you will write the manuscript. The manuscript process starts, along with your experiment. So your methods should be written when you are doing your research, because that's time that how you are doing, and so you should write at that time, right? Then results, and then you should write, after that you have to write the introduction. And you should write the introduction, after selecting your targeted journal. First, you have to select the journal. Don't write introduction and discussion before you selected your journal, because that's depend largely upon the journal, the type, what they're looking for, what are the type of research, what's the area of study in that journal, and how the previous studies, have been, done in that journal. And in the last, your title and your abstract should come always in the last. Of course, the abstract will be always last, but title also should be always the last. So this should be the order for your, when you're attempting to write a manuscript, for the maximum clarity and maximum consistency. So if you follow this process, you are going to, write a good and excellent manuscript. Now, the first thing is, the importance of your title. So your title is very important, right? So you have to make sure that, your title, it grabs the, the reader's attention, and it has to be very specific, don't give a very generalized title. So what should you avoid? Avoid, jargon words, avoid abbreviations and acronyms in your title. Never give those words in a title. And always, you should write, 2 to 3 titles, and then you should pick the best. It's not that you just write one title and you go ahead with that. Try to write 2 or 3 titles and see which title best suits, to your study, and which can grab the reader's attention, because that's where the title, if like, for example, I'm doing a lot of search. When we search literature, we try to search some specific area. You always first, are presented with the title of the research, right? And after looking at the title, then only you go to the abstract, and then you go to the entire paper. So if the title, is not attractive, and is not specific, you are not going to read further to the even abstract or, the manuscript. So the title should not be very long. So I just give an example here, for one of my research actually, so if the title is too long, then it's considered as a poor. So it should be, it's always, good that you should have a shorter and easy to understand title, which can give a maximum clarity to the readers. Then after you finish your title, then of course, the abstract, I'm presenting you in the order, not in the order of writing the manuscript that I told you. You have to write first, the methods and the results. But I'm discussing in the, order of the manuscript, after the manuscript is finalized, like first you have title, then abstract. So the second is the abstract. So most of the people will only read this, this section. So your paper is very important, but before your entire manuscript, your abstract is very important, because many times many journals, they don't just they just publish only abstract as an open access, and if you want to read the full paper, you have to pay, right, the charges. So if the full paper is not available, then the readers have the only thing to look at is the abstract. So the abstract is very important, and it must be able to stand alone. The abstract should be very concise. They are very limited words. Some journals, they don't allow you to write more than even 250 words in the abstract, and some, of course, may allow you to write up to 500 and 600 words. But if it's just 250 words, then you have to write everything important in your manuscript in that abstract, so that reader can get an idea about your research. So it should give an accurate summary of your research and conclusions reached. Okay, and the abstract can be structured, it can be unstructured. So you can write just in one paragraph 250 words, or you can again structure your abstract, like giving a background information, methods, results, and conclusions. So again, that depends upon the requirement for the journals, because every journal has a different requirement. Some, they want you to write a structured abstract, some journals want you to write unstructured abstracts. So always consult the guide for authors for specific requirements. Now, a good abstract, should always be brief. It should state the objectives and scope of the study or investigation, and it should describe the methods employed. Then you have to summarize the results. Okay, you have to state the principal conclusions. Avoid abbreviations unless necessary, and avoid references, in your abstract. So these are certain things which you should keep in mind when you're writing an abstract, and that's what is called as a good abstract. Then after abstract, the another aspect is the keywords, right? So you should choose appropriate keywords for indexing purposes and citations. You see, most of your citations, it again depends on what keywords, because those are the keywords which will be, seen, in the search engines, right? So if you don't write appropriate keywords, your paper may not be able to seen, in the searches by the prospective authors or readers. So it's very important. So use established keywords. You should use a keyword which are established and which are normally, appear in the indexes, and then your paper can also appear in the search engines. Because until unless your paper is not appearing, in the top of the searches, then there are very less chances that, other researchers will cite your paper, because they will not be able to reach to your papers, and the citation becomes then difficult. So the keywords and terminology, should be which is like normally established in literatures and databases. Avoid very general terms, and some journals, you have to make sure that, if the particular word is in your title, then you cannot write that word in your keywords. Okay, so they don't allow you to write keywords which is in your title. Okay, so the next is now from here you start writing actually your manuscript, that is introduction. So introduction means, as you can see here, on your screen, that I have written why. Okay, so why means why you want to do this research. That is the answer you have to which should come in this section, right? So what was the question, or what was the problem that you have studied? Okay, and answer to this question, is, in your introduction. And that is why introduction becomes very important. And that's where, that's because that's the beginning of your manuscript. And if you fail to attract, a reader in introduction, then, there are chances that, readers may not study, go with the entire manuscript. So there are three parts, in introduction: the beginning of introduction, the middle part, and the end part. For every section, even for methods, discussions, and results, we have similar three parts. You begin, then in the middle part, and the end part. So in the beginning part of introduction, you should provide the background information to put your work in the context. Okay. So do not write a comprehensive literature review of the field. So introduction does not mean that you have to give a review of literature in that field. It is not like writing a thesis, right? It's a paper which cannot be very long also, right? You have to finish your paper in a couple of pages. So you should not write a very comprehensive literature review of the field. And do cite, you must cite so that the readers can refer to if they want some more information. So if you do not cite anything here, then you're just writing on your own, then there is no references for what you write in the background information. So readers cannot get information from where you have taken. So cite it is very important. In the middle part, what you have to do is from middle to end, what is the rationale. In the middle part, normally it is what's the rationale for your study. Why are you doing this study? What's the reason for your study? Why you have chosen this study? That rationale you have to provide, and that is very important. If you fail to give a reason, for your study, in your introduction part, then that does not go well with the readers. And also the reviewers are going to, you see, whatever I am discussing here, if you are not following these things, the reviewers, they will be asking you questions, in your manuscript, and when the manuscript goes to them, and that's where your manuscript gets rejected. So then you have to explain how you address the problem, like in 1 or 2 sentences, and do not state results from your study. Never state any outcome of your study, in your introduction section. Anything. It should be. We have seen sometimes the researchers, they make these mistakes, and they sometimes state results in the introduction part. You should never ever take ever do that. Now towards the end of your introduction part, clearly state the aims of your study. In the end, you have to write what is the purpose, what's the objective of your study. State the methods you will use to carry out your aims, like what are you going to do, okay? And ask yourself, are the citations balanced? Means that again, that's very important, before you complete introduction, that whatever citations you have made, in introduction, are they current and relevant? don't just write, anything, any previous study, which, just to fulfill an introduction part. It has to be, relevant to your study, and it has to be current. Sometimes you can take, very old, but if you see that science is still, applicable, but otherwise you must go with the current and the relevant information, in introduction part. Then moving to the third, next is materials and methods. Now, materials and methods means here the question is how are you going to, how you have done your study. So first is a why. Introduction, we answer the question why. In materials, we are answering the question how. So your clear subheadings describe the methods in past tense. New methods must be described in a sufficient detail for another researcher to reproduce the experiment. Established methods can be referenced, or even like if you're using some questionnaires or some established methods to for your research, just give a reference. You don't have to explain them those methods, just to give a reference, and others know, and they can find out how it was carried out. But if you have a new method, then it should be described in a clear. You see, in the method means what? Methods is very important. When you write a method, means suppose now if I want to read your manuscript, I read your manuscript and I want to replicate the same research what you have done, then I should be able to do that after reading your methods. If something is missing and I cannot replicate your research, means you have hidden certain things in the methodology. So methodology has to be very clear, especially when you are adopting new methods, and describe your statistical test very clearly. Then statistical application is the heart of your scientific inquiry, right? And consider statistical analysis when you design your study. So when you're designing it, your study, that time you have to decide what statistical test you are going to use. It's not that you do it after, so you have to decide first. Everything should be planned, before you start this thing. So and that before start of your research, exactly. Then comes your results. After the methods, it comes, the results of your study, and results is like what you find. Okay. In the results, the answer is what. So remember, we have first answer why, then we answer how, and in results, we are answering what. So assemble your findings in a logical order to make a story. Use subheadings, use past tense to describe your results. Okay. But refer to the figures and tables in a present tense. So when you're writing about the figures and tables, it should be in the present tense, not in the past tense. So present the facts, do not discuss your results. So in the results, actually, you have to present your facts. You're not discussing your results, why it happened, how it happened. That should not be discussed. You have to just, okay, this is your mean, this is your standard deviation, this is, you get significant difference, you don't get significant difference. So you have to just present the facts in the results. Do not duplicate data among figures and tables and text. If you have presented the tables and figures, don't try to just repeat the same data in your text, okay? So basically, because that can be, readers can read that in the tables and figures. So try not to do that in the results, okay? Then display items, tables and figures, okay? So figures and tables should be very effective, okay? Make sure that they are effective. Keep them as simple as possible. Try to use separate panels if required, and avoid duplication within the text. So label all parts of your figures. You should include the trend lines. You should include the scale bars and statistical significance. So legends, whatever legends you are using to for your tables and figures, they must be able to stand alone. So again, this is an important thing which you should keep in mind. And then comes the discussion. As a researcher personally, this is my personal, I feel that this is very important. And this is where many manuscripts are rejected. And this is what I do as a reviewer also. If the manuscript which comes to me and they fail to discuss the results properly, because just presenting your results does not make much sense. After that, you have to answer so many questions, and that comes in the discussion part. So we have asked a question, what? In results. Now in discussion, we say, so what? So if you are saying that I found a significant difference, between the two groups on certain variables. So the question as a reader, I will ask, so what? If you find a difference between the two groups, so what? What does it mean? So what do these, so that's what, if your findings, your results, what does your findings mean? The answer to this question is in the discussion. So you have the findings, and now the meaning of those findings, the interpretation of those findings have to be discussed in the discussion section. And this is where the lot of time is consumed in writing discussions. Sometime, you see, as a researcher, for me, it is quite easy to write the introduction, methods, and results. That may not take much time for me to write. I can do it very quickly. And then once you start writing discussion, there at that place are where you stuck. You don't get that appropriate line. Many times you don't get an appropriate study to to cite there also. So that one line sometime you have to read maybe 10, 20, 30 papers many times and read them again and again just to find that one appropriate line, for your discussion. And sometimes you have to spend very sleepless nights, to write the discussion. So discussion is, it's very critical and very important part of your paper for manuscript. And that's what it is. It has been said that the most difficult section for the most authors to write, and don't just generalize it. So you have to present the principles, relationships here, generalizations shown by the results, summarize and discuss your results. Do not just repeat them. So this is a common mistake made by many researchers. This is even when I evaluate the theses also. I have examined more than 100 theses till now. So when we examine the thesis, many times I found that the results are repeated in the discussion sections. So you don't have to repeat the results. You have to discuss your results in the discussion sections. So the past tense to describe the results and present tense to describe their implications. So when you're writing a discussion, be humble, okay? Don't overstate the importance of your results, okay? Our findings, so just be, that our findings prove that, our findings show that, our findings suggest that, like that. Then in the beginning of the discussion, you have to answer the research question, okay? Then you have to always provide the major or main result first, and then give your conclusions based on those results. In the middle part of the discussion, interpret the results, okay? In one, suppose if you have 4 or 5 ideas in your research paper, so for every idea, give one paragraph, okay? And what do your observations results imply? Are the results from previous studies relevant to your work? So you have to cite that also. Or if they are not relevant, then compare your results with the other studies, other researchers in the similar area. Is it same? Is it different? And what are the possible reasons, even if they are different, what are the possible reasons why they are different? So present your ambiguous results and discrepancies with other studies objectively. So if the results are ambiguous, and there are discrepancies, with other studies, then present them objectively. Explain the unexpected findings to the best of your. Sometimes you get findings which are not, much expected in the type of your study, but you should try to explain that, in best possible way. Briefly describe your limitations. That's very important, but that should be in a brief. And remember, if you don't do all these things, in your manuscripts, the reviewers will do that. And that's what the reviewers are there. So they will do that and they will write, and that's where your manuscripts are rejected. In the end, reiterate your conclusions. Begin with a signal that in summary, we did this, in conclusion, like that, and mention possible implications or applications or speculations, whatever appropriate. And then you should give a suggestion for the future work if your research type requires. So this is how you should end your discussion. Then comes your references. So always format your references properly, okay? And for that, you have to check the guide, for authors for the appropriate format. Formatting is required in text for citations and for your reference sections. Okay. Use reference management software. So there are many softwares like RefWorks, Mendeley, EndNote, Zotero. So I personally recommend EndNote. So you can use these things to basically format your references, and make sure that your references are proper, they are not mismanaged.